Thanks for tuning in. A subscriber asked me a question last week about reprints, how they work, and how Pokemon decides what to reprint and when. With the anticipated drop of more Destined rivals, I thought now would be a good time to break down how that system works. Welcome back to the PokeTicker. Let's see what the market's telling us. Want to give a shout out here to PokemonPriceTracker.com. They have put together a nice little reprint guide that I'll walk you through. Goes over some of those aspects that the Pokemon Company uses to make these decisions. So first of all, we want to understand their reprint philosophy. They break it down here in 4 quick bullet points. 1, obviously maintain accessibility for their competitive players. 2, meet the sustained demand for collectors. Combat secondary market speculation that prices out kids and younger collectors. And then celebrate the anniversaries and milestones. Obviously, the 30th anniversary set's coming out very soon, and that one is very relevant right now. They also go over how Pokemon reprints work. I wouldn't quite call it like this. This is more just the 4 types of reprints. 1 is the same set reprints, just making more of the same card. That's putting out more ETBs, booster boxes, all the same products from a set. Cross-set reprints, that's popular cards reprinted in later sets. We see that often with stamps and things like that. The 3rd is the special collection reprints. So those are cards in premium collection tins, so that's your SPCs, UPCs, tins, things of that nature. And then obviously the anniversary reprint. So several cards that were printed back in prior generations are coming back out in the 30th anniversary set. And all of those will have effect on their prior iterations of the cards. Shining Magikarp to Shining Magikarp, that Lugia card that's coming in the 30th anniversary. Obviously they're doing another Charizard. All those affect the prior cards in some way. With that said, the reprint structure works a little differently in the modern era. It starts, I would agree with the article here, right around that COVID era when the Pokemon Company and the TCG hobby really took off. Sun and Moon kind of tailed off near the end. A couple of those sets had longer print runs, but everybody knows that Team Up had tiny print run. Those cards are super expensive. And they didn't really follow how the modern cards work because it was a different environment back then. They use Prismatic Evolutions as a quote-unquote case study here. It's more just an example of how the reprints have impacted those sets. You could see the Umbreon EX Special Illustration Rare was up to over $1,500. And once they did some reprints, down under $1,000. That's exactly the kind of impact that reprints can have. Don't always do that. Depends on how much reprint, how consistent, that sort of thing. But does show a nice picture of a typical decline. And then they do quickly touch upon Ascended Heroes here, which I would argue is a little bit different because when it first came out, it only had one, I can't remember if it's the 2-pack or the 3-pack blister, but it really only had one product available when it dropped. And then they had to drop in several other waves the additional product because they weren't fully ready for the set, I would argue. And because of that, prices remained really high for a long time and are now starting to come down in the summer, along with the anticipation of the 30th anniversary set. This really went over just some of their philosophy, what the reasoning is behind the reprints. I'm going to use the Prismatic Evolution example here to show you and kind of explain the timing and how it works on a typical set. I put together this snapshot of Prismatic Evolutions because it follows the philosophy and the time frame of a typical popular set in the modern era and how the Pokemon Company likes to do reprints for them. You can see on January 17th, they released Prismatic Evolutions. They had some initial products, the ETB binder poster collections, tech sticker collection. This is a special set, so no booster box, but a nice assortment of product release. They knew what they had because the anticipation was so high. Actually, 2 days prior, they announced they would be doing reprints. That's a little atypical, but with a super popular set, this is something that they wanted known so that they could control the price on the secondary market a little bit better. I would argue it didn't really work very well, but this is something that they will do to try to help control the pricing and help the hobby remain at a level that's affordable to the majority of collectors. Following that, less than 6 months later, GameStop has a re-release of several of these products. And then 6 months after that, there's more restock. I just used Best Buy and GameStop as examples. Obviously, the SBC came out in here as well. So they've been consistently doing quote-unquote reprints. And that can just be a certain product comes out, a certain retailer has it, these all serve as ways to bring down the price for the collector. And then in 2026 and ongoing, they've consistently done additional drops of ETBs and box collections and things of that nature. All of this is in an effort to keep the price and the set available to the common collector. The second part of that is Pokemon isn't going to do this for less popular sets. I would argue they're not going to do it for the last 3 Mega Evolution sets. There may be a small reprint here or there, but I don't anticipate Perfect Order, Chaos Rising, or Pitch Black getting large additional drops of product. And that's probably because they'll spend all their time on Ascended Heroes and on the 30th anniversary set, right? Those are very popular. Prismatic Evolutions and Destined Rivals have been the most popular up until this point. And while Destined Rivals hasn't gotten huge additional waves yet, they've got a couple. They've had their products included in some special boxes, which is another way that the Pokemon Company tries to get additional product out there. But now we have that anticipation for Destined Rivals coming in the next month, and we've seen some of those prices start to come down. In that same area, I just wanted to cover, retailer restock patterns. These are some of the main retailers the Pokemon Company works for. You can see Target does overnight drops. Walmart typically does Wednesday evenings. Best Buy's a little inconsistent. I've gone when they're supposedly dropping and there's been nothing, and then I've driven by and seen people lined out the door when nothing was anticipated. They're a little bit more random, and then GameStop tends to send emails out ahead announcing it because they want lines out the door and to get as many people to buy their product as possible, even when they price it at a place that's not nice, I guess I'll say. With the anticipation of the Destined Rivals reprint, I want to go over the ETB as an example, but all of their product is following this pattern right now. You could see in the last month, it's gone from about $170 all the way down here to $135, $133. That's the impact that the reprints tend and should have on these new sets. The initial wave did not satisfy the demand. There was not enough product out there for what everybody wanted. And so once you get a little bit further, the set's only about a little over a year old. People have other sets, Ascended Heroes, Prismatic Evolutions, some of the Mega Evolutions, Phantasmal Flames, focus has shifted. And so now when this kind of set gets a reprint, this is the exact trajectory that we want to see. You'll come down here and you'll see all the unopened product is right in line with that 130 range. And this is great for the hobby, right? If you were looking to get it, or you missed out on cards, or you wanted to have some products maybe to keep sealed for a little bit, now is definitely the time to start looking at buying. It looks like maybe it's hit the absolute bottom, but could get a little bit lower when the new product actually comes out. The timing aspect is the much harder to know. The Pokemon Company doesn't actually release the information publicly. It just kind of comes through the distributors and the big box stores, and all those Discord servers and bots and communities are the ones keeping track. A lot of the data that I found, and I'll go through some other sites here, are from communities kind of pulling together and finding that information and then getting it out there. The timing aspect is a little less important. It's more just knowing that the Pokemon Company will probably reprint X set. Here's an article from back around COVID times. You can see they've been doing this consistently in the modern era with the more popular sets. The demand for recent expansions has been particularly overwhelming. As we've seen, the Pokemon Center retail website crashed after putting up pre-order listings for Shining Fates. So the issues with the Pokemon Center website are not new. It's been consistent since COVID. Anytime you try to get on there and try to get something, it's a struggle. And this was Shining Fates, which I would argue was maybe not the most popular set compared to some of the newer sets. Here's an article from a year and a half ago from PokeBeach talking about Journey Together's release, posting the statement that they know their fans are experiencing difficulties getting the cards. They're doing their best to print more to satisfy demand. And then they even talk about Prismatic Evolutions and the anticipated release of Destined Rivals. Again, those two sets are really a good snapshot of how they typically do reprints and why they typically do reprints and the type of set they typically do a reprint for. And then just quickly touch on some of the things that they're trying to do to address the shortages. Obviously, they're printing way more cards, 10 billion cards printed in the last fiscal year, if you will. Obviously, I touched on this in the last video, some of the things they're doing to try to avoid scalping Japan. They're reprinting the popular sets, specifically mentioned Prismatic and Destined, and then obviously removing TCG vending machines from some problem areas and curbing the bots, which I don't know if they'll ever be able to truly get rid of those, but I wish they would. And again, just quickly touching on some of the cards that saw big shifts from heavy reprints. One of the best examples is Fusion Strike. If you were around during that in the hobby during that time, Fusion Strike saw huge prints. That was pretty much, I don't know if it's the exact set after, but it was very close to Evolving Skies. And even with that, they printed this set into the ground. You could get booster boxes for 80 something dollars at the time, and now they're going for, I think, 800 plus. And so a lot of these cards that they have in this article are examples of playable cards that then got kind of printed again and drove the price down. So a great example is the Fusion Strike Genesect here alt art card. This was a super playable card, and then because of how printed the set was, its price went way down. So this is not a new issue for the Pokemon Company. This is something that's been going on for the last several generations. And with that said, just wanted to touch on the 30th anniversary here at the end of the video. This obviously is really anticipated by the hobby. They have some new cards. They have some reprints of cards. Obviously, this is one of those reprint types. The base set Charizard, and then this was a promo back from Sun and Moon era. A lot of anticipation. Just know that this set, just like the 25th anniversary set, will be printed into the ground. They'll be reprinting it for over a year. Even after it's technically the 30th anniversary, we're in the 31st year, they will be printing this just like the 25th anniversary. So don't feel like you need to get it right at the beginning when it's priced super expensive. Definitely get a little bit if you really want to open some packs, but I personally, and I would suggest to you to hold off a little bit until the prices come down, because they will come down, and the Pokemon Company will definitely reprint this set. Just like Prismatic, just like Destined Rivals, any sets that are very popular, that are priced so high, they are going to continue to get product out there so that collectors can get the cards, so that prices don't go completely out of control. And honestly, they want to only reprint those sets that they know distribution can move. Distribution channels do not want to sit on product for long periods of time. They can't do that. And so the Pokemon Company will reprint these popular sets. Hopefully you found some of what I said and showed helpful. If you have any additional questions or like me to go into more depth on any one area, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video.